Okay, let's start with this. A couple of days ago, John Bel's, the governor's budget passed, what was it, 62-38? I don't remember the exact number.
Yeah, 63-38. Yeah.
You voted against the governor's budget. A, why did you vote against it? B, why did it pass with such a wide margin?
Well, listen, I voted against it, as did 38 or 37 of my colleagues, because it does not reflect the priorities and values of the people of my district or this great state. I mean, we have serious concerns about this budget, Robert, and some of these have been articulated over the last couple of days. But, among the top concerns is the fact that the budget cuts the TOPS program by 47%. And important for us up here in Northwest Louisiana is it leaves our public-private partnership hospitals and our critical medical school in jeopardy of being grossly underfunded. I mean, it's a crisis. And what's worse about all of that is that this budget is $2 billion larger than the current year's budget. And that's because of all this explosive growth of government programs and entitlements under the Edwards administration. So we really had no choice. We had to reject it.
And yet a Republican-dominated, it still passed, right? What was the behind-the-scenes chatter? What were people saying to each other that said, no, let's go with this, in spite of the, I think, solid objections you just raised?
Well, I tell you what, there was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of, back and forth. There were a lot of Republicans that voted with the governor to basically approve the budget that he initially wanted. And I think that's a great tragedy. I mean, look, all of this is being pushed as at the same time that the chief economist for the Legislative Fiscal Office has repeatedly declared that Louisiana is in an oil-based recession. And the thing is, Robert, common sense tells us raising additional taxes in a shrinking economy is a terrible idea. It's dangerous. It's counterproductive. We already have the highest sales taxes in the nation. We rank 18th highest in per capita spending. And the people of this state have had enough.
You just made an interesting point about raising taxes. And yet, Mr. Mike, last night you actually started the special, in parentheses, tax-raising session. The official kickoff is, I guess, this morning at 10. What are the governor's goals for this special session? And given the fact that you just were critical of his budget, saying that he is deepening the Louisiana debt, is the special session where he hopes to make up the difference?
Well, I'm going to tell you, he threw the gauntlet down last night. He had a news conference following the adjournment of the regular session about 6 o'clock last night. And you're right, the special session began at 6:30. It's a terrible time for special session. It's untimely, and the governor's priorities are wrong, and we're going to remind him of that at every turn. But, this is not the time to raise more taxes. Our families and small businesses simply cannot afford it. We can't do it. Since the day he took office, John Bel Edwards has forced through at least $2 billion in new government spending. And nobody yet knows whether the new revenue measures that were passed in the first special session in February, I voted against all that, but a lot of people supported those taxes. We don't know how much money that's going to bring in yet to cover all the new spending. So it's a premature thing to come in and ask for more revenue when you don't even have the calculations of what we've done prior to this time in this calendar year.
He said a couple of times leading up to this new special session, one of his goals is to increase the gas tax. In your mind, if you had to list maybe two or three of what John Bel wants coming out of this session, what would you say?
Well, he's asked for a laundry list of tax increases on people and business. I mean, he wants to raise the individual and corporate income taxes, the franchise tax. He's asked for a decrease in refundable tax credits and sales tax exemptions and other tax categories. I mean, it's tax-a-palooza at the legislature, and we simply can't afford it. We cannot afford it, and I'm hoping that the people who are listening to our voices, who understand that we are taxed enough already, that they'll let their voices be heard. They'll call their senators and representatives and say, enough is enough already.
Aaron, and I do all the time, me, how much more of my money does the state of Louisiana want? And as we enter this special session where the state wants more and more of everybody's cash, I'm thinking, Mike, there were 63 in the House that voted for the governor's budget. What chance is there that those same 63 are going to vote for more taxes?
It's we're in a perilous situation. I'll be very frank about it. I am concerned that we cannot hold the line. Now, they need a supermajority vote to increase taxes on most of these things, so maybe that'll save us. But I'm going to tell you, we have so much waste and fraud and abuse in government, and anyone who argues that the government cannot be run more efficiently, that they need more money, they're just not looking at the facts, Robert. I mean, the legislative auditor's report in January of this year documented $1.8 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse throughout government. $1.8 billion. Now, look, even if you assume that some of the report is invalid or overstated, indisputably there's hundreds of millions of dollars in documented waste in state government. We don't need to fuel the beast anymore. We need to reduce the size and the scope of government. That's the only thing that's going to save this economy. And I think the governor's priorities are all wrong.
How long is state session going to the special session going to last? How long is it going to be?
2.5 weeks, and it's going to be a crazy time down there. And like I said, we really do need the backup support of the people. This is supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people. But if the people don't speak up and let their voices be heard, these elected officials of theirs down in Baton Rouge will engage in all these hijinks. So we have to have people calling their offices, emailing, texting. All of that works. You've got to let your voice be heard so the people will know you're not going to stand for this.